Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan Cam, and welcome to the beginning of the 60s project, where I'm going to be joined by my very special co-host, Russell from Notorious by Chance, and we're going to be going through a whole ton of movies from the 1960s year by year. And Russell, thank you so much for joining me. How you doing?
Good, man. Really glad to take on this marathon of a project. Just was an idea that I had cooking in my head, and I know you are a guy of, obviously the 99 Project. It was one of the things where I was like, you know what, that'd be kind of cool just to start back a little bit. Originally, I was thinking 50s, but as we were kind of talking about it, it's actually kind of better we started with the 60s just because of availability for some of these films. Um, so I think 60s was a great spot to start.
Yeah, we frequently talked like off air about how sometimes you find a link to a film, you're like, great, we got it, and then it just disappears off the face of the earth, and physical media just doesn't have it. So it is very tricky. And with the 99 Project, it was tricky. I was able to review 166 movies, which is very, very, very decent. I'll just leave it at that.
Oh,
Russell's going to be joining me for this and a couple of other projects that are going to be premiering here on the channel very soon, and I will appraise you all as they come up down the line. But Russell is slowly becoming one of my favorite people in this whole space, and so I'm happy to make him more of a permanent part of this channel. So, Russell, you have been crazy enough to say yes to do this and what we have coming up with me. So I really do appreciate it from the bottom of my heart.
Oh yeah, no, and I appreciate you you know, having me on as well. I think it's just something that I think that we can both tackle. And with our love of film, I think this is just a good matchup here.
Absolutely. Well, kind of similar to the 99 Project, we're going to be tackling just the year 1960. And I won't get too deep into the year as a whole. I think we can save that for when we get to the very end of the year. But this will be much shorter than the 99 Project. Well, at least covering 1960 because like I said, the lack of availability, but also just there weren't as many movies released in a given year as, like, say, we would get nowadays. Availability is one thing, but another thing is that movies just stayed in theaters longer, or drive-ins or other things. So we're probably going to go through the 60s at a brisk pace because I have looked up everything on Wikipedia, Letterboxd, the numbers. If I have missed something, it is not for lack of trying. So if we do
Hmm.
miss something, then we looked for it and we just couldn't find it. But by my count, we have at least, hang on, let me look at my list here. We have about 47 movies to cover, so just in
Yep.
1960 alone. So I
Yeah.
think, and most of them cover a pretty broad scope of genre and country and just general things. So I think this will be very interesting. The point I'm trying to get at is that this will be a shorter project than 99. We'll probably get into 61 by the tail end of 2025 or even sooner than that. But we'll be moving
Yeah.
through this at a brisk pace. That is my point. But if you like this video, leave a like, subscribe. Russell's channel is linked below. Notorious by Chance is his podcast. Also follow them on the Facebook group. Be sure to do all of that. But Russell, if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's get things started. We have one movie to cover this week for the 60s project, and it is a little ditty from the fair nation of Italy. It is called Carthage in Flames. This was directed by Carmine, and I'm going to read the name off so I get it right. Carmine Gallone. It's Gallone.
Yeah.
My name skills, even with a new year, are still shoddy at best. So if I get it wrong, I deeply apologize to Mr. Gallone, but it's spelled Gallone. And it starred Pierre Brosser, Daniel Gain, and Anne Haywood, among others. And this is a historical drama about the Punic Wars and basically the battle between the Roman Empire and the Empire of Carthage. So what's interesting about doing a project like this is that we're going to be watching movies we would never normally go out of our way to watch. And so
Yeah.
when I was talking about this with Russell, I'm like, is he going to like some of these? So I'll pass it off to you first, Russell. What did you think of Carthage in Flames?
Um, it almost like like I was like messaging you obviously off camera. It was probably in the 1960s. I'm sure this film was a little bit more of an epical a shot just because of the way it is shot. I mean, it's shot fine, don't get me wrong. I think that, just the whole wherever they shot it at. I mean, I think it's beautiful at spots like that. And when you get to scenes like, the fight scenes are a little bit are a lot cheesy. There's a lot of clinking and clanking. There's horses. There's falling and then instant death almost. But with the love triangle, kind of reminded me of almost like a Pearl Harbor esque. If we're talking about, let's put Roman Empire, Carthage War as your back burner, i.e., like Pearl Harbor, and then let's just go ahead and have like a love triangle. Your, obviously your Josh Hartnett, your Ben Affleck, and what Kate Beckinsale characters. You know what I'm saying? Like it kind of like that, but it was the thing I found. Now, obviously, the biggest thing to find is this movie was shot in Italian, obviously, so it's hard to pick up a dubbed copy of this. I got it on a website. Again, with the 60s project, like we said, disclaimer wise, trying to find and pinpoint physical media and or like this on Amazon Prime is just not going to happen. You got to kind of go. You really got to do some research in order to find these films. Um, but sometimes I find it a little bit confusing just because of the fact that I feel like the two women in the film almost look the same.
Yeah, I
Did
thought
you?
that
Did
too. I thought that
okay?
too.
Yeah, I'm like, God, why do we always like in every movie we have to have like somebody look exactly the same? Like, why don't we have a blonde and let's have a brunette? And then whenever they're on camera, it's like, oh, okay, well, we know who's who. Sometimes I had to like take it back a little bit and find out who the character was in order to, recognize, where we were at on the storyline. I feel like it jumbled around a little bit too, a lot.
I have not seen Pearl Harbor in a minute, but when you brought that up, I'm like, oh yeah, there is
Yeah.
actually quite a bit of comparison here, and I don't think Michael Bay like ripped this movie off or
Oh
anything.
no, no.
But
This would be, yeah. This was just something that I think we've used this trope has been done so many times. You have a backstory, and then you have like you could even throw in like brothers. Put brothers in there too with Tobey Maguire and
Jake
kind
Gyllenhaal.
of like a love triangle with Natalie Portman. I mean it's different. Obviously the circumstances are different. This isn't like somebody dies and somebody tries to pick up their wife or girlfriend or what have you. I just think it's kind of crazy, like just this the whole entire love triangle in this film. You know what I mean? I think it is kind of crazy. But I mean, I obviously we'll talk about that.
The thing that I appreciated the most about the movie was how it looked because
Yeah,
I'm a sucker for practical effects and I feel like this came out because somebody in Italy somewhere saw Ben-Hur. I'm like, yeah, that Navy
yeah,
battle, we need to do that.
yeah. And that's kind of what I thought too. I was thinking, obviously, like your older films, like Ben Hur. But I like the practicality of it. I really did. Obviously, 1960s, you're not going to have the blockbuster, special effects that we're so commonplace now. So you have to do a lot of practical effects, and I think and kind of like what I was poking fun of, like with the whole the battle scenes. The battle scenes aren't your Braveheart, Archer, what you're used to, like your Normandy Beach, Saving Private Ryan type battles, but or Gladiator even at you know. But you get where the director's coming from. You get what they're trying to do, and I understand that, and I like kind of how you said. I kind of appreciate the practical effects of everything of the whole film too.
You also have to understand that that was what they had. That CGI was not a thing, and
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure
yeah,
like there was something related to technology like being used around that time period, but at the point of 1960, if you wanted to use a computer, you would probably have to go to somewhere at NASA, like not the technology that we have today. So you gotta
oh yeah,
understand the context what um, of what they were going for, and you were talking about the clinking, the clanking of the swords. I
yeah,
it
yeah,
like once you hear it, you can't unhear it, but at the same time, I kind of
yeah,
loved it at the same time because like you that would be super polished nowadays, but you hear like ding ding dong dong. I'm
Yeah,
like, it's at the
yeah.
same level of if I would do it with like one of those like pool noodles or something.
Yeah, no, and also I think for notes to the listeners, also what I'm reading here on the Wikipedia, this movie was among the most expensive epic adventures produced in Italy during the '60s, which I obviously kind of like obviously what we had mentioned. You can kind of see what they were going for, like an epic type a setup. I mean, just how the film shot, where it's shot. Just everything about it. You get that grandiose like vibe, like almost like it feels like Ten Commandments. Like how you said Ben Hur. You get that vibe that they are going for something grand. Cleopatra. Just other films to kind of to talk about. But yeah, the thing about it is, I think a little bit the love triangle is very very hard to follow at some points. You know what I mean? I feel like they really 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 try to beat that home a lot. You're good.
I I was lost myself like more than a
Yeah.
few times, and I'm like, I was like, I need a refresher. Like someone
Yeah.
needs to come in and be like, he loves her, she is jealous. Like that's all
Yeah.
I need.
And that's the thing, obviously Hiram is our protagonist, our main character. um and apparently previously he had been rescued by a woman, and I guess would that be the Ophir, wouldn't it be?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so Ophir rescues Hiram, and then later on down the road Hiram has a chance to rescue her, which he does. um But now we see that, Ophir's in love with Hiram, but her father's kind of already arranged a marriage with a character named, was it Sor or Zhao? Or no, how's that pronounced?
Uh, you're
Zhao?
asking
Zhao?
you're
Or
asking the
Tao?
guy you're asking the guy who butchered Carmine Gallone. Uh,
uh, Tsour. I think it's Tiz, 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 Tizao. I don't know. Anyway, she is obviously her father's kind of already arranged a marriage with this other guy, but now she is obviously not in love with him. She's in love with Hiram, and then the or no, take that back. I think. Wait a minute. Hold on.
kind of illustrates if Russell and I can't figure it out, then like just imagine somebody in 1960 watching this going like, what is going on here?
Basically, he rescues this woman. This woman is like in love with him, but he kind of Hiram doesn't really care for her. He is in love with somebody else who is supposed to be married off to somebody else. I believe that's kind of the. I think that's the setup. And then basically that person, which is it's crazy because like the guy kind of like contests very easily to Hiram. Like he's like yeah, he's kind of bummed hearing that his soon to be bride is not in love with him, is in love with Hiram instead. And like I said, they focus a lot more on this, I feel like, than the battle. I feel like this is I feel like the battle is just kind of the background noise. And this love story, I feel like they're really trying to put that front and center.
Yes, so I couldn't agree with you more. And I think
Yeah.
to put the period at the end of the sentence on my thoughts for this movie is that it looks really nice. The battles are dated, but they're still a lot of fun, and I can personally admire the craft of it all. Like
Oh
was
yeah.
some movies I tend to be like story's kind of weak, but at least they're kind of trying in like other areas, so I can be a little forgiving in that regard, and I'll definitely be forgiving here. I think because they actually made an attempt and like clearly the money's on the screen. I'm going to give
Oh
this,
yeah.
I'm personally going to give this a good rating. And I think for me, one more note before I forget, because I will forget and I'll be editing this later. I'm like, should have brought that up, is the opening. The opening with the score. That was one of my
Oh
favorite
yeah.
parts of the movie.
100%. I was going to touch upon the score. I did like the score quite a bit. You know, kind of like kind of like what it would be more of like it kind of reminded me of almost how almost like the good, the bad, the ugly type scored. You know what I mean? Not as not saying what Ennio Morricone or whatever his name is, the composer of that. I'm
Morricone.
saying you get that vibe though because again, Italy, Italian film, Italian composer, the same type of the same type of feel you get to it. I do feel like you do hear a lot of the same um, scores quite often in this film. But again, I feel like I feel like that's maybe just a product of the '60s. I think they are really trying to set the tone up because obviously the good, the bad, the ugly was in the '60s as well, and I think maybe that later on in the '60s, obviously we'll talk about. But I think score was such a big thing in film, um, and it's one of those things where this can get overlooked completely of just all the films that have come out past this, obviously. But yeah, I liked it enough. I think out of five, I'd throw it maybe like 2.5, 3. I think it's
That,
fine.
that sounds about right.
Uh, yeah, I'm not going to say this is going to be your masterpiece of 1960 by any means, but it's far from the worst, and I think this will kind of find its way in the average of the 1960.
Yeah, well, this is just the very start of 1960, and I cannot wait to dive into the rest of it. But if you have seen Carthage in Flames, let us know in the comments. We would love to read what you have to say. And like I said, Russell's going to be a very, very big part of this channel this year and going forward. We've got a couple of things in the works. Let's just say, you know what? I'll announce it here. Why not? He's doing the 2000 project with me. I was going to do it by myself, but Russell was like, why don't I just do it with you? And I'm like, if you're crazy to do it with me, you're volunteering, then by all means, I'll take the help. And so
Yeah.
next week we start the 2000 project and we kick off with a new millennium and we're going to be talking about, and I'll read it off because I have it scheduled. The Extreme Adventures of Super Dave next Friday, Play It to the Bone, and Supernova, which I read about in a book of notorious box office flops. So I'm looking forward to watching that. Sarcasm.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what you said with the 2000s project, I know there's other people that kind of want to do certain films, and that's good because the flexibility of that allows other people a chance to review stuff too. So it's not like predominantly, yeah, I will be with you taking on the helm of 2000s, but other people will be jumping in too.
Absolutely. Like I said, I'll just give you all a preview here. In the month of January, we'll be covering, well, January 2000 at least, we'll be covering Scream 3 and Eric Moreno from who has been on my channel a couple times reviewing Teaching Mrs. Tingle and
Oh man, I remember that.
And Kronos. Like he's my local Scream expert. So if I ever need anything Scream related, I call him. But he's going to be coming on very soon to cover Scream 3 with me. So stay tuned for that. But the 2000 project will begin next Friday and that will be that'll be fun when we start that. But Russell, like I said, your channel and Facebook group is linked in the description. What do you and Chance have coming up?
We did a in memoriam. Our last, actually, it was going to be our last poll of the calendar year 2024. Our schedules kind of just didn't allow for it, so we actually have it put up. I think it's pretty much a done deal. I think we're going to be doing Field of Dreams because of the passing of James Earl Jones. Truth be told, I have not actually seen all of Field of Dreams. As much as crazy as that sounds, I'm a big baseball guy. I just never had seen it. And we didn't want to put Lion King on there because the Lion obviously Lion King's my all-time favorite Disney uh, cartoon. I feel like you're in the kind of the same boat as well, right?
Yeah,
With the Lion King as
I
your favorite, yeah.
love Lion King to pieces. As a matter of fact, to prepare for Mufasa, I covered Lion King 1, 2, and 1.5, and I watched the remake again, which was terrible, but there you go.
Awful,
I,
yeah.
and I basically made a video where I did my top 5 favorite moments from Lion King because I like doing a full-fledged review of it, of like what could I possibly add to the conversation? Like it's great. Like watch it.
Oh yeah, I mean it's an all-time classic. I think that's why we try to like stay away from the ones that are obviously going to be like a blowout winner. Is kind of what we do on the polls. So we kind of put other movies on there like we had obviously, like I said, we had James Earl Jones for the Field of Dreams. I'm trying to think who else we had on there. We had who did we have on there? Because I'm kind of curious now. We had Maggie Smith for Gosford Park, Donald Sutherland for Clute, Norman Jewison, who directed Moonstruck, and we had Louis Gossett Jr. for An Officer and a Gentleman, and then James Earl Jones for Field of Dreams. So we had some good choices on there. So I'm kind of looking forward to reviewing Field of Dreams. And then I don't know, kind of whatever we kind of go in that realm of wherever we kind of review. That's why I kind of like this project where this is kind of more linear. Our other, Notorious by Chance is more of a we kind of hop around, talk about like topics that are like relevant. I think I was doing a thing where I was talking to Chance. I kind of want to do a for Den of Thieves too. I kind of want to have a Gerard Butler action poll. So I'm thinking that we might be tossing that around. Put maybe like Law Abiding Citizen, Gamer, those types of films on there. Like all of his like his action packed type movies. Like I mean, I think that would be kind of cool. But who knows?
Well, uh, I'm going to be having a review of the original Den of Thieves coming up on the channel next week. I rewatched it because I hadn't seen it since the theater. That movie is way better than I remember it being. Like, I was like blown
Oh,
away
for
by how
sure.
much I enjoyed it.
Yeah. And hence why obviously they're putting a sequel out, which I'm glad about because I love like Jerry B is a guy that I always champion. He got kind of like I feel like he was like almost typecast for like rom coms there after like P.S. I Love You, The Bounty Hunter. He just like got stuck in like rom coms. And he's a solid actor. Like even go back to Joel Schumacher's Phantom of the Opera. He does his singing. I think he's pretty solid as the Phantom. Um, but I kind of always like his films. He's kind of like a guilty pleasure with his like action films, kind of like Liam Neeson. So I'm hoping, like I said, Den of Thieves, the first one for like 2 hours and some chance. I think it was like almost 220 ish. Uh, it really goes by rather quickly. It could be one of those movies that gets really boring, but it's not. And I'm kind of glad, looking forward to a sequel for that. But yeah.
So subscribe over at Notorious by Chance, both of those links down below. If you're listening audio wise, thank you so much for that. If you're watching the video version, thank you so much for that as well. But we will see you all next week. For Russell, my name is Ryan Cam. We will see you all in the next one. Take care.